Welcome everybody to Race Review. It's finally here. The Formula 1 2018 season is upon us and the Australian Grand Prix has already been and gone. So let's just crack on then with the first ever Formula 1 race review. And in the preview show, I predicted the winner would be Valtteri Bottas, and that prediction went out the window before the race started. In qualifying Q3, big dramas as out of turn 1 on the inside curbing of turn 2, Valtteri spun the rear end into the tyre barrier, span back across the track, rear wing gone, big carnage, a great crash to watch, really excited. One of the best qualifyings I've seen for a long time actually. The whole session was really good. No one really knew where the pace of any of the teams were. The midfield was so tight. Fantastic indeed. And then all that was left was Lewis Hamilton to take the pole. Obviously, we all pretty much knew, or we could give a good guess that it would be Hamilton on pole. He is the master of qualifying, and that Mercedes looks so quick, let's be honest. But I'm sure we didn't expect RÄIKKÖNEN second. Great lap from Kimi, very impressed. This is what he needs if he wants to stay one final season at Ferrari. Hats off to him. Impressed there. Vettel in third, not too happy. But he had a 3-second penalty, which meant on the grid it would be Kevin Magnussen in 6th place and Grosjean in 7th. A fantastic job from the Haas team going into the race. Lap 1. Nothing major, pretty clean start, no big changes with the front three. But Kevin Magnussen managed to go around the outside of Max Verstappen and get into 4th place. A great opportunistic move there from Magnussen. Someone who I've been very harsh on, especially last season. I was not impressed with K-Mag whatsoever, especially some of his rash moves, but today he looks a changed man, and this could be his season where he turns around my opinion of him. Anyway, nothing major in the opening laps. We saw a few little battles, especially with the likes of Daniel Ricciardo, Fernando, ALONSO, some great defending, but nothing incredible. We then saw Max Verstappen on the attack, hunting down Kevin Magnussen, and something we've never seen from the almighty Max Verstappen, the man that I get completely shredded into when I say a bad word about him, made a mistake, a rare mistake from Max Verstappen, and it didn't help that his tyres were on fire. Those tyres had pretty much gone before the race had even begun due to dirty air, and that was a theme throughout the whole race weekend. It really did ruin it, but we did see this last season with Albert Park as well. It's just such a difficult track to overtake. Partner that with the dirty air, drivers can get very frustrated, which is what we saw with Max Verstappen. I think it's 50% driver error, 50% tyre issues, but it was good to see. Good bit of drama, something a bit fresh, if you want to call it that. We never really see spins, but unfortunately that let Grosjean, Ricciardo, and I think both Renaults as well got through. So Verstappen, that was pretty gutting for him, to be perfectly honest. He was having a pretty solid race, and that really did ruin it. Then we got to the pit stop phase. Now this is where the race was won, the race was lost. Hamilton and RÄIKKÖNEN came in early, Vettel stayed out. A few other drivers stayed out, notably Ricciardo, Fernando, ALONSO. And then, when Magnussen came in, he was in, obviously, P4. He came in, he comes out, and yes, everyone's looking and saying, oh no, he's been jumped by Verstappen. No, how's this happened? And then you're looking again, and Magnussen's slowing. And the whole first stint, I was certain I was going to put Magnussen as my driver of the day. I was really impressed with him today. And then, not even halfway point of the race, he was out, and there was an issue in the pit stop, and you've got to be gutted for that. But then, one lap later, it happened again. The same thing happened, but on Romain Grosjean's car. It was ridiculous. Haas were on for a 4th, 5th, a 4th, 7th, anywhere between there in their fight with the Red Bulls, and that was absolutely gutting to see for both drivers. Haas, what a turnaround they've had from last season, what an improvement. And in the first 2 seasons, they've started the season off well and ended it pretty poorly. If that trend happens again, they'll be gutted at the huge amount of points they've been missing out on. But the bigger issue at hand here was the virtual safety car, something I'm not a lover of at all. I think it's an awful thing in Formula 1. I think the safety car is good enough, in my personal opinion. I know that's a very controversial opinion, especially because it was introduced to stop things like the Japanese Grand Prix in 2014 happening again. But I still think there should be a better way than the virtual safety car. And I'm just a lover of the normal safety car, bunching up the field. I think it makes racing a lot more interesting. Just imagine in Baku last year, if they didn't use the safety car, how boring of a race that potentially could have been. So, anyway, that's a topic for another day, and a very controversial one, I know. But that's why the race was won today. Virtual safety car came out, pretty much gave Vettel a free pit stop, and he eventually came out in front of Lewis Hamilton. Now, Mercedes have blamed it on a technical glitch. I don't think that's the case. I just think it was the fact that Vettel had a free pit stop. And it also screwed up Raikkonen as well. Raikkonen was on for a P2. It was going to be touch and go whether it be Vettel or Raikkonen, but of course the virtual safety car helped out Vettel substantially. And the race was won there. Hamilton could not pass him. We know that Mercedes is awful in the dirty air, or at least not as good. It's still a great car, but not as good. Hamilton did make a few mistakes. That can't be denied. Just at the beginning of Sector 2, running wide in front of all the fans on the hill. They all loved it, but Hamilton was getting so frustrated in that car, and I don't blame him. And you can see what it meant to him at the end of the race as well. P4 was Daniel Ricciardo at this point, chasing down Kimi Räikkönen, couldn't quite pass him as much as he would have loved to. He was so eager for that podium, but couldn't quite do it. And then P5, Fernando Alonso. Actually, well, I'm pretty much going through the race results now, so here they are. Vettel first, Hamilton second, Räikkönen third, Ricciardo fourth. P5, Fernando Alonso. Fantastic job from Fernando. I mean, again, the virtual safety car helped him out a lot, but he did drive a very solid race, and is definitely, in my opinion, a contender for driver of the day. P6, Max Verstappen. A disappointed race for him, I'm sure. P7, Nico Hülkenberg. Solid points for Renault. They would have probably have liked to be a bit more opportunistic in this race, especially both Hasses dropping out. And the fact that Verstappen had a spin and Alonso started behind them, I'm sure they'll be happy with points, but not over the moon, if you catch my drift. P8 was Valtteri Bottas. He started way down in the field, P15 or 16. Worked his way up, but once again was just a pawn in the game that is the Albert Park circuit. Could not get past anyone. A shame for Valtteri, but a quiet weekend for him, except qualifying, obviously, and definitely one to forget for him for sure. And if he wants to stay at Mercedes, he's going to have to up his game for the remainder of the races, for 100% sure. P9, Stoffel Van Dorn, one of my favourite drivers on the grid, did a pretty okay race. He was pretty much there on the pace with Fernando. Van Dorn was pretty much neck and neck with Fernando the whole race, just one place behind him. But he was one of the drivers that did get screwed over by the virtual safety car. But again, he was slightly behind Alonso once again. And as much as I love Stoffel, I'd like to see him in front of Alonso more. It started to happen at the end of last season. He's going to have to start doing it on a much more regular basis if McLaren keep him. I'm sure they will, because if they get rid of Stoffel, then if Fernando goes, they've got to find two drivers. So I'm sure they will keep him, but he's going to have to up his game a slight bit, but still a solid effort. And then P10, suffering from nausea, issues with the water, the drink in his car, I believe, was Carlos Sainz. So double point score for Renault, double point score for Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, Red Bull. Are we surprised at any of that? I don't think we are, really. If you'd have looked at last season, maybe you would be. Especially no Force Indias in the top 10. P11 and P12 at the end. That was sad to see, actually. Force India nowhere this weekend. You didn't even see them in the race. A little bits and bobs with Sergio Perez, with Valtteri Bottas overtaking him, but Ocon, I didn't even see Ocon in the race. Same with Lance Stroll. Didn't even see him. He had a very quiet race and weekend. In qualifying, he did batter Sergei Sorokin, to be perfectly honest, which was nice to see from Stroll. But it is still difficult to work out the pace, that Williams car. But none of the backmarkers we saw at all today on the TV, except when they were breaking down. Leclerc was in P13, P14 was Stroll, and rounding out the grid, P15 was Brendan Hartley. Leclerc in 13th, didn't see him at all. It was out-qualified by Marcus Ericsson, which, is that good for Ericsson? I think it is. You know, Pascal Wehrlein instantly got in that car and was outperforming him, but the highly rated Charles Leclerc didn't. So, Ericsson, solid job. But Leclerc, quiet day today, but he did finish the race. No major incidents, so a solid job. And 13th, at the end of the day, that's going to put them in a pretty good position in the Constructors for the next few races. But at the end of the season, I don't think it'll make much difference. Drivers that didn't finish then. Both Haas cars, obviously. Pierre Gasly had what looked to be engine issues with a Honda engine. Not great at all, especially considering testing went so well for them. Quite a bit of a surprise. Marcus Ericsson had issues as well, seemed to be hydraulics, and Sergei Sorokin had brake issues pretty much at lap 7, I believe it was, very early on in the race, so he really didn't get a chance at a full race in Formula 1. So that was the full grid, full results. What do I think of this race? I thought it was okay. Like I say, if I was to give it a rating out of 10, I'd give it a 5. I think the same as I gave it last season. Always gets bonus points for being the start of the season, new cars, and it's nice not knowing the pace of cars as well, if that makes any sense. You know, you don't really have a clue who's going to be where. Obviously, going into next race, we'll have a better idea, but the first race of the season, you don't really know. So, a couple of good overtakes here and there. It's nice to see that it wasn't Mercedes domination and that Ferrari actually won. But it's really annoying seeing drivers complaining about not overtaking, issues with the virtual safety car, and it's not controversial, but it's just a shame that the race was won due to a car breaking down rather than driver skill being involved, if you understand what I'm sort of saying. I'm not in any way, shape or form saying Sebastian Vettel isn't a fantastic driver, but I think we can all agree Lewis Hamilton was the quickest driver this weekend, and because of circumstance, didn't win. And that is the luck of the draw in Formula 1, you know. There is more races across the season, obviously, as well, but this will be a hard one for Hamilton, and a hard one for RÄIKKÖNEN as well. He, like I said earlier, he was much quicker than Vettel in qualifying. Quicker than Vettel in qualifying, seemed to be a bit more consistent as well. In practice, very hard to tell, obviously. Vettel did finish first in FP3, but was the only one to run slick tyres. But RÄIKKÖNEN did look very good, and like I said, that'll be a tough one for Kimi to take, just like it will be for the Haas boys. That'll be the hardest hitting one today. So 5 out of 10 I'm going to give the race. Like I say, just annoying race. Had potential to be fantastic, but was restricted by these aero regulations that were designed to be fantastic. Cars look great, except the halo. As much as I've defended it, still I'd prefer it not being there. But the racing has still something to be desired, for sure. Driver of the day then. The bit that everyone wants to know. Who do I think was the best racer today? Kevin Magnussen is definitely a shout, for sure. But he only completed half the race, so I can't really give it to him. Sebastian Vettel, again, he didn't make an on-track overtake. So I always say this, you can't give it to a driver who didn't make an on-track overtake. Alonso, he did make an on-track overtake. Was impressed with Fernando. Finishing P5 is actually his joint best since he rejoined McLaren. So that's a good effort there. Ricciardo as well, really capitalising after yesterday and looks solid. So for the first race of the season, my driver of the day is going to be Fernando Alonso. That is who I'm going to give it to. I know some of you guys are going to be annoyed, but I'm going to give it to him. Solid job from Fernando today. Qualifying P11 yesterday, starting the race in P10, working his way up to 5th. Solid job. And no way, shape or form am I saying this is a 10 out of 10 performance, because it was so difficult for anyone to do anything really. But I'm going to give it to Alonso. Very impressed there. Definitely the standout drive for me today. So, one race down, 20 to go. A quick side note, I saw a few people commenting, where was today's video? Obviously, this is quite late. I don't plan to do every race review this late, but I was at work today, which was really annoying for me because I had to stay away from all social media all day, not listen to the radio, not listen to any of the news, completely just shut myself off from society, it felt like. So that was why I was late putting this out, because I saw the race late. Hopefully this is only a one-off. I shouldn't be working Sundays. Like I say, it was under complete random circumstance that I had to go in today, but it's still out, so that's all good, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed. In the comments down below, I want to see your driver of the day. Hopefully you enjoyed today's race review. Remember to like, subscribe, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.